Janet has been a wonderful wife since we were married 5 years ago. Our sex life has been amazing and our marriage has been strong. And up until that point, she had never once given me cause for jealousy or suspicion of her infidelity. That's why I was stunned by her request to meet with the vice president of her company. Since she joined Global Connections 3 years ago, she has worked her way up to marketing manager for an international entertainment firm. As you can imagine, she meets all sorts of people and attends many events, conferences, consulting, and marketing meetings. Some of their clients are very well known, such as the New York Knicks, Chicago Bears, and New England Patriots. Her energetic and upbeat personality, combined with her athletic build, firm breasts, blonde hair, blue eyes, and intelligence, made her a perfect fit for this company. She told me about her plans, successes, and daily activities, and I was happy to listen and proud of her accomplishments. She dreams of becoming vice president of marketing and is working hard to achieve that goal. Global Connects is a British organization with offices around the world, and its manager, Ian Woolsey, is the vice president of marketing. In his early 50s, he is a self-made success, has been married 3 times, and has 9 children, including 3 by his current wife. I couldn't get away from thinking it was a good thing he gets a big paycheck to support his connections and divorces when she told me about her boss. Janet started talking about Ian one evening, telling me about her day, but only in a business setting, nothing personal. She explained that he was coming to the US for 2 months, and it would give her a chance to show him how valuable she was to the company, and let him know she was interested in a promotion within the organization. That's my girl, motivated and focused on her future. We had just started talking about kids, and I asked her if the promotion would affect the timeline for our family to grow. She said she wanted to get a feel for her position in the company while Ian was here, and then she'd let me know if we should have kids or put our plans on hold for a year. I was fine with either option as we were still in our 20s and in no hurry to have children, but we wanted 2, a boy and a girl. We spent many evenings and hours picking out names and universities they would go to when they grew up. We were in love with each other and looked forward to raising our future children. A week after Ian arrived, I stopped by Janet's office to surprise her and take her to lunch. When I walked into her office, I saw Ian and my wife standing too close, and she was giggling and flirting. When she heard me say hello, she quickly stopped and moved away from him. Janet introduced me to Ian, and I swear that's when I saw the smirk on his face. "Ian, this is my husband, Brian." "Brian, this is Ian, the executive vice president from our corporate office. Remember I told you he came for a short visit?" Then I saw it again. He grinned smugly as he spoke. "Well, hello there. So you're our little hubby. Nice to meet you, but you'll have to excuse me, I'm late for a meeting," and quickly walked out of the office, avoiding small talk. I found his greeting incredibly rude, especially for a man in his position. "Janet, what the hell was that? And why were you hanging on him and giggling?" I was beyond giggling and had the urge to wipe that stupid smirk off his face, but it was gone before I could do anything. She knew I was upset about how we had just met and tried to calm me down. "Calm down, sweetie. It's only Ian, and it was a little harmless flirting. Besides, he's old enough to be my father. Look, all the girls are crazy about him. He thinks he's a ladies' man with his charming British accent and likes to flirt, and we all know he's just a cocky jerk, but he's the boss. Anyway, he's a family man, and you have nothing to worry about. It's just light flirting with the girls. He calls it fun. Well, I don't like it, and he has the nerve to call me little hubby. And why the hell are you flirting back at him? Brian, stop being jealous. Ian is the 3rd oldest in the company, and I need to be nice to him. Like I said, he thinks he's a ladies' man. And that's the way British men are. Well, I don't like it. Calm down, he'll be gone in 2 months." After that, there was tension at home for a few days, and Janet was careful not to mention his name or upset me any more than I already was. Then, on Wednesday night, a week after meeting Ian at the office, Janet struck up a casual conversation over dinner. "Honey, is it okay if I have dinner with Ian, my boss from work?" I tensed up a little as it took me a while to understand her question and answered question to question to question. "You mean like a business meeting of some sort?" "Well, no, it's more like a one-time date before he goes back to London." I immediately felt my insides tighten and my heart beat faster. I sat in silence for a long time before I answered. "I see. Is this the same Ian who flirted with you and made fun of me in your office? The so-called family man married with a total of 9 children by 3 different wives? Well, yes, but he turned out to be a very nice man. He won't be here for long, and I probably won't see him again when he returns to London, so I thought one date would be enough. As I said, he's married and has children. There would be nothing romantic about it, just a bit of fun. One night is all I'm asking for. It might even help my career. I mean, really, you're out of town on business all the time. And one night away from home shouldn't be such a big deal. Okay, so it's not just dinner, it's a date. And you want to spend the whole night with him. Let me be clear, Janet. I will never, ever let you go on a date with another man while we're married. You understand? In fact, just realizing that you want to be with another man makes me rethink our marriage. Seeing my reaction, she panicked. God, no, you've got it all wrong. I love you, and you are my husband. Ian is just a one-time thing, and I'll be back the next day. Nothing will change between us, and he'll be out of our lives forever. My God, it's just a one-night thing. I looked at her with rage in my eyes and just said, fuck you. I will be filing divorce papers in the next few days. I then stood up, walked to my closet, packed a bag of clothes, and walked out. She continued to beg me to come back as I drove away from my once happy home. In less than 30 minutes, my once happy marriage had turned into a nuclear disaster. Immediately, the calls from my loving wife began, followed by continuous messages expressing her love and insisting that I would never have anyone else. In the next message, she tried to convince me that I was her loving husband, that this was all a misunderstanding, and that I needed to come home. As I drove, I told myself that if she was so easily swayed, then our future as husband and wife was in jeopardy, and it would take serious effort, if at all possible, to restore it. I'd been gone for 2 nights, ignoring her calls and taking time off work, asking them to tell her I was out of town on a business trip. Ever since Ian had shown up at my office, all the women in my workplace had been enamored with this strong, handsome man who attracted the attention of women. He was tall, well-built, and spoke with an amazing accent that was both seductive and hypnotizing. From the moment we met, it was clear to everyone that he had his eye on me. The compliments, the private meetings, the lunches together, and all the extra time he gave me were the envy of the other women. Every one of them would jump at the chance to be with Ian, married or not. The married women were even more active in encouraging me to go for it. Janet, he asked you out several times. All the girls in the office would instantly switch places with you. He's so handsome, and his accent makes us all drool when he talks to us. Take him up on his offer, and have sex with this powerful man. You may never get another chance. Brian doesn't need to know, and he'll be back in London, so no potential problems in the future. The girls in the office hounded me every day until one day they finally convinced me to go for it. I knew deep down that I could never go behind my husband's back. So I got the idea to ask Brian to let me go on one date, just once, and then everything would be back to normal. The girls assured me that Brian would understand and give me this one night. At least that's what most of them told me. That night when I told him about it, I was overwhelmed by his anger. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, and now he's gone. I can't believe he just walked away like that. I never thought he would be so upset. In desperation, I called Gail, one of the girls at work. Gail and I both started working for the company in the same department on the same day 3 years ago and have been inseparable ever since. Sobbing into the phone, I said, "Hi, Gail. It's Janet. He's gone. He left me." "Janet, what are you talking about?" "I told Brian I wanted to go to dinner with Ian, and he just walked out on me. He just got up from the table, packed his things, and ran out of the house. He even mentioned divorce, and now I'm afraid I've lost him." "Nonsense. He's just angry. You hurt his fragile male ego, but he'll come around. You haven't done anything yet, and he knows it. He may get mad and pout for a few days, but he'll forgive you. We'll come up with another plan to set you up with Ian. Trust me." "I don't want that. I just want my husband." "Janet, relax. Have a glass of wine, get some rest. I'll see you at work tomorrow." The planning for her infidelity continues. Brian came home 2 days later and moved into the second bedroom. Gail was right. Brian was furious, much more so than anyone had realized. Although Brian loved Janet, he was ready to divorce her if she mentioned Ian's name one more time. At least marriage counseling seemed inevitable. Over the next week, Janet struggled to earn Brian's forgiveness. After a week of seeing his attractive wife and no sexual contact, Brian decided to suppress his anger. They had a torrid sex session, and Brian eventually forgave Janet, but sternly warned her, "I won't be back here next time." Janet dodged a bullet, and promised Brian that she would never make a mistake like that again. She shared the whole story with the girls at work, confessing that she almost lost her husband because of her stupid idea. However, now the girls were not confused and came up with a foolproof plan to get Ian and Janet together. It became a collective project, and the marketing team was determined to achieve their goal of organizing a meeting between Ian and Janet before he returned to London. One of the women, Marcia, came up with an idea that the team loved and took their plan to the next level. Girls, we have an end-of-year celebration dinner coming up in 2 weeks at the Hyatt Hotel. I know for a fact that they are planning to have a nice dinner for the whole team with a band and dancing. This year they want spouses to attend, and when I heard about it, I had a brainstorm. You know my husband Clark is a pharmaceutical sales rep specializing in anesthesiology. His company has developed a new formulation of midazolam. For those of you who don't know what that is, I'll explain. Midazolam is a drug given to patients to sedate them before surgery. It knocks them out in seconds and causes short-term amnesia. From that point on, they don't remember anything until they wake up. Now, midazolam is administered intravenously, but the new drug, S2-Mid, comes in pill or liquid form. Well, the husband's new popular product is S2-Mid, and he sells it in large quantities. It works like magic and is better than the original formula. So, how's that going to help us? Asked Gail as Janet listened with a puzzled expression on her face. Gail, I'm glad you asked. Since these are Schedule II drugs, Clark keeps his samples under lock and key in his car. He makes sure they're safe and out of reach. Sometimes, however, he takes my little Mustang Cobra for a ride. When he's gone, I can easily grab his key and grab a few pills or an ounce of liquid, and no one will ever know. Okay, Marcia, that's interesting. But what's your plan? You girls are going to love this. At the party, when everyone is gathered, I'll pour myself a drink in my glass and hand it to Brian. I know from previous encounters with him that he can't resist Crown Royal, so I casually hold 2 glasses in my hand and hold one out to Brian when I see he needs a drink. The effect can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes, depending on how much he drinks. But he'll start to feel drowsy, dizzy, and eventually pass out in one of the chairs we bring him over to. We'll then tell everyone that Brian isn't feeling well, and then take him to your hotel room and put him to bed. He'll be unconscious for at least 4 hours and probably won't wake up until morning. Turning to Janet, Marcia continued. When we take him to his room, that will be the signal for you to go with Ian. Go up to his room and have him to your mind for a few hours. We'll cover for you here and tell everyone that you went upstairs to be with Brian. After a few hours of having Ian to the point of mindlessness, you go back to your room, take a shower, clean yourself up, and then snuggle up to Brian with thoughts of Ian. I bet this will be the best night of your life. Girls, I can't do this to Brian. You want me to drug my husband to sleep with Ian? Do you realize how crazy that sounds? Brian would kill me if he knew we were even considering it. Sure, I know it would be exciting and increase my chances of promotion, but if Brian caught me, he'd divorce me. Yeah, about as crazy as you not getting Ian. Come on, it's safe, and he'll never know what happened. Ian will be indebted to you, and your promotion will be secured. The last thing Brian will remember is you asking him if he's okay and that you love him. And when he wakes up in your arms, you'll have wonderful memories of the night you spent with Ian. And you better share it with all of us, sister. I don't know. This is crazy. Look, let me think about it. Things are better at home, and Brian's not angry anymore. I'll tell him about the party and see how he reacts. Janet decides her fate. Later in bed, Janet said, Brain, we're having our annual dinner in 2 weeks, and we're inviting the spouses. You need to get your tuxedo cleaned and ironed since it will be a formal dinner. We haven't gone to a dance in a long time, and it will be fun. Janet, as much as I hate these events, I'll do it because I know it's important to you. That night I thanked him with great sex. He went to bed that night a happy and satisfied husband. Nevertheless, my sexual appetite was whetted, and suddenly I had the idea of having a one-time affair with Ian to try things I would never have thought of before. At that moment, I decided to put my plan into action and texted Marcia. I'm in. Can you get the cure? A minute later, a reply message came back. Leave it to me. No problem. Janet really enjoyed sex with Brian, and she was excited about doing it with Ian one day. The thrill of only being able to do it once and never again kept her energized and constantly aroused. She wasn't sure if it was the temptation to do something indecent or the idea of spending the night with her boss, but either way, she stuck to the plan. She promised herself that it would be a one-time thing and that Brian would never find out. No big deal, nothing objectionable, right? Over the next week, Brian noticed that Janet became much more active on her cell phone, texting her friends more often. He knew a party was coming up, and he had an uneasy feeling that something was wrong. A few nights later, when Janet was sound asleep, Brian pulled out her phone, entered her password, the date of their anniversary, and opened her text messages. For the next hour, he read with horror about what they had planned for that night, including the drug, the time to slip it into his drink, how long to wait, and how to get his room key to tuck him in. He found out everything: who was getting the drug, who was going to get him drunk, and worst of all, how Ian was in on the plan and was going to take his wife to his room while Brian was unconscious. Then, after they were done having fun, Janet would leave Ian and go back to her hotel room and pretend that all was right with the world, while Brian was still unconscious and unaware that the drugs were still in his system. That was all he needed to know. After downloading all the text messages to the cloud, he handed her phone back to her and tried to go back to sleep. It wasn't easy. He was horrified to learn that the woman he loved planned to drug him and betray him in the same night. This was war, and he was going to be prepared. They would all pay for their betrayal. Brian continued to play the role of loving husband, monitoring her messages and getting updates on their plans up until the day of the party. During this time, he called his Uncle Bob, his godfather, and a retired police officer. Brian told him what was going on, and together they worked out their plan. With the right timing and a little acting, they could outplay the entire Jackal team. The covert group they had concocted included Ellie Johnson, Uncle Bob's former police partner. Ellie joined two of Brian's army buddies, Craig Marks and Jimmy Jones, to help with their plan. Ellie was to make sure that Brian didn't drink alcohol with drugs at the party. Uncle Bob, Craig, and Jimmy did the hard work that was to come later in the evening. Brian recalls this work event. As I expected, Janet was wearing a very revealing dress with a deep neckline, black stockings with seams, and shoes with very high heels. Her makeup and hair were flawless, and it pained me to realize that the reason she dressed like that was not because of me. The realization that it was another man was a hurtful act that I would never forgive. "You look very sexy tonight, darling. Is this all for me?" "Of course, darling. I want you to show off your sexy wife and be proud of her." I almost choked when I heard how easily she lied to me. The bitch was going to drug me and fuck another man right under my nose. She didn't care that I would be humiliated in front of all her coworkers, each of whom knew exactly what she was up to. No, all she cared about was being with this guy, and I still couldn't understand why she would risk everything for a one-time fling. As my dear old dad once told me, women just can't understand normal thinking. We found ourselves at a party, and we were quickly surrounded by Janet's friends. They dragged her into the circle where Ian held the defenses. I followed them, looking around the room for Ellie, Bob's former police partner, who was nearby. We had planned to have Ellie help mix drinks to save me from getting drugged. I spotted her off to the side as I approached the circle surrounding Ian. Unfortunately, I couldn't stand next to Janet because she was now next to Ian, who had his arm around her waist, laughing and telling jokes. My instinctive urge was to grab her and pull her away from him, but that would have ruined our plans. So I just watched her actions, and it hurt like hell. I felt my stomach twitching, twist and bile come up to my throat as my anger intensified. She was so in love with Ian and was giving him all of her attention. In that moment, I didn't exist in her world. I was standing next to some other guy watching Ian perform in front of a crowd of onlookers. That's when Ian saw me and decided to have a little fun at my expense. "Well, look who's here, the accountant. Welcome, little man," he said with a wicked grin. It was then that Janet saw my face and suddenly realized she was being held tightly by Ian and not her husband, as he continued. "You know, I've got a few jokes you'll like, Brian. What do accountants use for birth control?" "Their personality." Everyone looked at me and laughed, including Janet, which I admit hurt my ego. He proceeded to humiliate me in front of the entire staff, and my wife did nothing to stop him. It hurt like hell, but I had to keep my cool and let our plan play out. The asshole was having fun now. "Did you enjoy that, Brian? You're a boring accountant by nature, you know." He then spewed out a dozen more jokes about accountants, and each time everyone, including my wife, just looked at me and laughed. "Your wife has wonderful W2 sneakers." My wife thought this was hilarious. "Oh baby, let me hold you." The girls there just giggled. Technically, sex with an accountant is a charitable gift. Janet laughed even louder as my humiliation became unbearable. In Brian's office, Urs means I'm very sexy. My anger was building. "If I help you fuck Uncle Sam, Can I be next? I'm done. That was it. I'd had enough humiliation for the rest of my life. I turned and walked away as he continued to make jokes in my direction. Laughing, Ian shouted as I walked away. "Brian, come back, kid, I was just kidding." Fury swept over me as I walked away. Okay, Ian was a few centimeters taller than me, but keep in mind that I'm not a small man at 185 centimeters tall and weighing 90 kilograms. I could snap that Englishman in half in 2 seconds if I wanted to. Of course Janet knew that, but at that moment I wasn't sure. The only thing I was sure of was that these idiots had to suffer and pay the price for the disrespect they were deliberately showing me. What the hell was Janet thinking? Was she really under his spell? Did she really just think I would accept her disrespect? As I was leaving, I suddenly felt someone's arm wrap around my waist, and to my surprise, it was Janet. "Honey," he was kidding. "Come with me." I gave her an angry look and said, "Are you out of your mind? You're standing there. He's got his arm around your waist and you're laughing at me with everyone else while he openly humiliates your husband, and you want me to go back to him? What kind of loving wife would do such a thing? I've never been so humiliated in my life. Hell, I make more money as an accountant than every one of those assholes. And you just went along with it like I was a buffoon. Just walk away, Janet. Go back to that screaming asshole. You two deserve each other. Brian, I'm so sorry. Please don't be mad. Let's sit and talk at our table for a few minutes." We did make it to our table, and I saw Ellie a few feet away watching the scene. Janet was still only paying attention to me and trying to calm me down, and after the second drink, I calmed down a bit. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Ian approaching our table. A goofy grin appeared on his face, and he reached out to shake my hand. "No hard feelings, old man. Back off, asshole," I said, surprising everyone at the table. Shocked by my display of anger, Janet said, "Brian, this is my boss. Please don't talk to him like that." That's when the giant ferret had the nerve to ask my wife to dance. "Janet, it's okay. I hurt the baby's feelings." "Would you like to dance?" She threw me an angry look after I sent her boss, took his hand, and led him to the dance floor. 3 dances later, my glass was empty, and that's when Gail and Marcia came over to my table and sat next to me. I noticed 2 glasses in Marcia's hand and realized it was showtime. Ellie saw the whole thing and sprang into action while the girls tried to calm me down. "Brian, Ian has a British sense of humor. Don't take it so personally. Janet loves you and is just trying to impress her boss. Here I brought your favorite Crown Royal on the rocks. I tried my best and saw the girls panic when I said, 'I don't know. I've had too much to drink already.' Maybe I should just leave Janet here and go home." They both yelled for me to stay as I got up to leave. I turned away from the table with a glass in my hand just in time as Ellie walked by and discreetly switched drinks for the girls. Then I sat down again and started drinking the water-diluted glass of Crown Royal that Ellie had prepared. Ellie kept the glass as physical evidence in case it was needed later. "You're probably both right. I'm just going to be a boring accountant. Let her flirt with her boss. Sit here and show everyone that I'm just a stupid jerk," I said, draining the entire glass. The look on Marcia's face was priceless. There was no way she expected me to drink the entire cocktail, let alone drink it in one gulp. When I finished, the girls said they had to go back to their husbands. Now, it was performance time and I sat at the table alone while Ian and Janet continued to dance. My acting skills were impressive that evening as I sank into a chair and began to pretend to doze off. I also continued to watch my wife and her boss find common ground and was amazed at how openly she flirted. A while later, I laid my head on the table and pretended to be asleep. I heard the girls and Janet coming over, trying to wake me up. Janet moved closer to my ear and said, "Honey, are you okay? Brian, wake up, baby." I opened my eyes and saw my beautiful cheating wife betraying me and telling me she loved me. I closed my eyes and realized what was coming next. It was then that Gail and Marcia picked me up and escorted me from the ballroom to my hotel room. Meanwhile, Ian and Janet slipped out the side door while everyone watched the scene one was acting out. When we got to my hotel room, I heard my phone beep to indicate that I had received a text message and realized that our plan was in motion. The girls laid me on the bed and undressed me. I smiled as I heard a loud gasp when they saw me naked. Oh shit. Janet never said he was like this. I don't think Ian is in the same class as Brian. Hell, if he leaves Janet, I want to try to do it. I'd love to try that. What the hell was Janet thinking cheating on this guy? But I think we had something to do with it. Shut up, Gail, and let's get out of here. When the door closed, I stood up, laughed at their comments, got dressed, and opened my phone. The text message read, Room 1722 at 1045. I had 15 minutes to get to the room and meet Bob, Jimmy, and Craig. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, got my brass knuckles, and headed for the door. At 1045, the four of us were in front of room 1722, just 30 minutes after the cheating couple had entered the room. Uncle Bob's job was to guide us into the room and then disappear. We didn't want him involved in what was to happen next. Bob knocked loudly on the door. Knock, knock. Ian's voice came from behind the door. Who is it? This is Sergeant Connor from the NYPD. Please open the door. We have an emergency. Uncle Bob put his old badge up to the peephole, and then we heard the door open about 15 centimeters. Uncle Bob turned and walked away with no idea what was going to happen next, and this is exactly what we wanted to happen. My army buddies, Jimmy and Craig, burst into the room, grabbed the naked Ian by the arms, and pinned him against the wall. I walked in with my cell phone, videotaping the room, my naked wife Janet on the bed, and my nemesis Ian against the wall. The look of shock on Janet's face when she saw me awake and standing in front of her was an expression of horror. I was the last person on earth she expected to see before morning. My face must have looked contorted with anger, judging by the look on her face when I spoke. You cheated on me because of this? I said, pointing at her lover. You ruined our marriage because of that asshole drugged me and lied to me. You really screwed up, Janet. You both picked the wrong guy to betray and mess with. Then I walked over to Ian. I smiled as I saw the fear in his eyes clearly reflected in my knuckles as my friends held him in place. What's wrong, Ian? No sarcastic comments or one of your stupid smirks? There was no response from the big guy, only a plea for forgiveness. After the first sorry came out of his lips, I beat him unconscious. I had no intention of doing irreparable damage until my last blow shattered his big nose. Blood splattered in all directions as he collapsed to the floor in a semi-conscious state, crying like a 5-year-old girl. Turning to Janet, I said, I'll probably go to jail for this, but right now I don't give a shit. I'm sure you'll testify in your lover's defense because he's all you have right now, slut. Yes, Janet, I knew about your plans to drug me, lie to me, cheat on me, and then fuck that asshole. You even slept with him while I was drugged in our hotel room downstairs, not even caring about the possible side effects of the drugs. On top of that, you were going to come back to me, pretend to be my loving wife, and tell me how much you love me. That I passed out at the party and how you and the girls took care of me all night. Well, my plan is much simpler than that. As tears streamed down her face, I continued. First of all, you're not coming home until tomorrow afternoon. You won't call or text me. Tomorrow morning you will be served with divorce papers here at the hotel. The courier is to wait for you to sign them and he'll notarize your signature. I'm being unfair about this divorce. You will get the house with about $80,000 in equity, but I will keep all of our savings and retirement money. I've already taken all the money out of our accounts and canceled your credit cards, so don't bother checking your balance. The terms of the divorce state that you agree to receive no support from me and our paths will part. And God willing, I'll never see your treacherous, cheating ass again. Your car is paid for so you can keep it, but all bills, insurance, gas, electric and mortgage payments are on you. Good luck with that. As for that asshole, I will send those videos of you and him naked to his wife, and I believe it will be marriage number 4 for your lover. You've got some catching up to do, slut, but I'm sure you'll sleep with enough guys to accomplish that soon enough. Oh, and one last note. If you sign the divorce papers that will be served tomorrow morning, we can part ways quietly, and no one will know about your slutty behavior. If you don't sign, I'll send a video to your mom and dad and explain why I'm leaving you. I will also make sure you both get fired from your jobs and ruin your reputation in this business. We both know how important your career is to you. I don't want to do that, so just sign the papers by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, or your life, as you know it, will be over. My stuff will be gone from the house, and anything I have left you can throw away or donate to charity. Janet, unable to hide her sobs, tried to speak. Baby, please talk to me. Don't do this. You know I just wanted to be with him once. I don't love him, and I don't want to see him. It was just supposed to give me pleasure and help me get a promotion. He was going back to London next week and I'd never see him again. Why couldn't you understand? I didn't want to be humiliated anymore and just ignored her ridiculous words. I told Craig and Jimmy to go home. You guys can leave now. You were never here. I'll take the blame if that happens. After they left, I looked at my wife and said quietly, Janet, I loved you. But what you did is unforgivable. You know how I felt when you brought it up the first time, but you decided to go behind my back and do it anyway. You also got other people involved, conspired against me, humiliated me, and drugged me. Hell, you even kidnapped me to screw this loser. Well, you almost got away with it. Please, Brian, you can't divorce me. You know I love you and I don't want anyone else. Honey? Give me a chance to prove it to you. This doesn't mean anything to me. It was only supposed to happen once. He's nothing compared to you, and now I realize how stupid I was. Please, baby, don't do this. Janet, it would be funny if it wasn't so ridiculous. You know, this video might be fun to watch again. You're nothing but a whore, a corporate whore. I'll never touch you again because now you're just damaged goods. In fact, after tonight I don't plan on seeing you again. After an awkward silence, Brian continued, Janet, the time for talking is over. When you conspired with your coworkers to drug and horn me, you destroyed our marriage and everything we worked for. Do you remember our future children that we've been planning all along, Emily and Jason? Well, because of you, they'll never be born. Our life together is history now and nothing but sad memories. So Janet, tell me, was the sex you got from that asshole worth it? I hope so. Because you gave up our future for that little loser asshole. Good job, now you can have him because this is the last time we'll ever be together. Brian left the room as she collapsed on the bed. Everything she had planned had burned to the ground. The girl's devious plan hadn't worked, and her one-time selfish act had taken a nasty toll, leaving her to live without the man she loved. And she did love Brian. Sobbing into her pillow, she couldn't understand why she had let it happen. She began to scream, to no one in particular, delirious and broken. When Ian, who was lying on the floor, came to his senses, Janet screamed. But Brian, the girl said you'll forgive me because you love me, and it'll only be once. Sex, just fucking sex with Ian. Can't you understand and forgive me? I'll make it up to you and I'll never do it again. Please don't leave me. Please, I love you. But Brian was already gone. The damage was done, and it was time for her to think about a future without her husband, the man she claimed to love. Epilogue. Gail, Marcia, Ian, and Janet were arrested and charged with multiple felony offenses, including conspiracy, kidnapping, drug possession, and drug assault. Gail was sentenced to 2 years in prison for conspiracy. Marcia received 10 years for conspiracy, possession, and assault, and Ian received 2 years for conspiracy. The kidnapping charges were dropped. Janet also received 2 years for conspiracy. Naturally, Janet, Marcia, and Gail lost their jobs, and the felony ruined their careers. After being released from prison, the girls had to take jobs that were once considered demeaning and beneath their dignity. Marcia's husband, Clark, lost his job because of the scandal and was unable to find a similar position. His career was hindered by his wife's desire to fulfill her fantasies with Janet's help. He divorced Marcia while she was serving her sentence. Gail's husband also divorced her, and she lost the love of her 2 children who never visited her. During this fiasco, Ian pressed charges against Brian for beating him and seriously breaking his nose. However, after the jury heard the entire case, Brian was found not guilty. Ian's wife divorced him, and he lost his job due to a felony and sexual harassment in the workplace. Janet attempted to recover damages from Ian for the sexual harassment in civil court, but by the time she got out of jail, Ian was divorced and penniless. He received no severance pay or references from his company upon his release from prison. The last anyone heard from Ian was that he was left penniless, with no job prospects and on probation for the next 5 years. The luxurious lifestyle and freedom he had once enjoyed was taken from him overnight, all because of his arrogance and inflated ego. Now this large man was humiliated and diminished in size. Brian moved on and, true to his word, never saw Janet again. 5 years later, he married a second time and lived with Gloria, a woman even more beautiful than Janet. Gloria was smart and loyal, having promised never to cheat on Brian. However, having been burned once, he became attentive twice. Brian insisted on a prenup before they were married, despite her promises of fidelity. After the experience, Brian found it difficult to trust any woman. Now, at the age of 31, Brian was happily married, and the couple was expecting their second child. Janet never recovered from the loss of Brian, the man she loved and never wanted to lose. Her depression never went away, and one night when she was alone as usual, Janet lay in bed and looked at Brian's Facebook page, as she had done every night since the divorce. Janet sobbed and flooded with tears when she saw the latest picture of Brian's son, Jason, and Emily, Brian's newborn daughter. She realized that Brian had gained the family she'd given up on, all because of one selfish betrayal. She never remarried and never forgave herself for her foolishness and selfish acts.